Hello and good morning. Do you even blog podcast listeners, as well as those of you who might be watching the video here? Today, I just want to share an important idea that I've been tossing around in my head over the past couple of weeks. There are different ways to grow businesses, and I want to highlight two seemingly opposite ideas of how to grow your business today: vertically versus horizontally. Vertically up and down versus horizontally side to side, growing your business. So let me kick this off with a story. Yesterday, I was on a podcast. It was a personal finance podcast, and the host did some research on me, and they said, "Hey, I had noticed in your background, you've just done a ton of different things. You just seem to like to dabble in all of the things." And he kept going and kept going. And I thought in my head, I know. That was my gut reaction. I know I've done way too many things and I've lost focus over the years and I've dabbled in this and that. And at the end of the podcast, I had to catch myself. I caught myself and I had to tell myself, that's okay. What I've done has largely worked. Like growing Do You Even Blog and all of my other projects since I quit my full-time job about 7 years ago. It's worked. I'm not a millionaire bajillionaire, but I make a living doing what I love. I have lots of free time. I choose what to work on when I want to work on it, and it's fine. It's worked. My dabbling has kind of worked. Could I be richer? Absolutely. But there are more than one ways to skin a cat. That seems like a metaphor. I don't actually know if that's a metaphor. There are more than one ways to skin a cat, i.e. there are more than one ways to grow your business. Let's talk about vertically and horizontally, because I think this could be really valuable to think about in your own business, whatever you got going on. So let's start with vertical. I'm going to define it, and then I'm going to give an example, and then I'm going to list some pros and cons, and then I'm going to do the same for horizontally. Vertically, growing your business. Here's what that looks like. Obviously, starting a project, a blog, a podcast, a business, a small business, brick and mortar, doesn't matter, and growing it to make more money and focusing on it 100%. Taking a blog from $0, brand new, to $100,000 a year, a six-figure blog. That is vertically growing a business. One project, growing it straight up. And this is the money. If you can see me on video, money going up, $100K a year. Now, an example of this for me would be Do You Even Blog? I can't even say my own brand name. This is kind of weird. Do You Even Blog for the first 5 years. I started it in 2017, or the first 4 years, and up until about 2021. And that I didn't focus on anything else. Side projects came into my brain and then they left my brain because I wanted to focus on Do You Even Blog and building it up and scaling it, building it up and scaling it. And I did. The first couple of months, I hardly made any cash. And then I made a little bit of cash, and then it grew really slowly over the next 9 months. But then it saw a substantial little bump, and then it grew really well for a year and a half, and then it kind of plateaued in 2020, 2021. And then I switched to growing my business horizontally, which I'll talk about in a second. Vertically, starting from zero, going to $100,000 a year, a six-figure business. Now, pros and cons. Actually, let's talk about horizontal, and then I'll come back to the pros and cons. It'll make more sense. Obviously, horizontally growing your business is going to look like starting 10 different projects that could make $10,000 a year. Does that make any sense? 10 times 10 is 100. So vertically growing your business is going from 0 to 100 on one project. Horizontally growing your business might look like 0 to 10K a year on 10 different projects, multiple projects. Dabbling, losing focus is the first thing that pops in my head when I think about this, but it's not necessarily true. That's horizontally growing your business. And this is what I've been doing since 2022, basically early 2022, late 2021. I put Do You Even Blog down for various reasons, which I won't go into right here, but I started new projects. I started a niche site and a niche YouTube channel. And then I started another niche site. And then I got into coding and I built up a few apps here and there. And I've continued to do a little bit of Do You Even Blog over the past 2-3 years, of course. But I have lots of different projects. They're not all making 10K a month. That was just an example. But they all are producing some income. I don't have anything that's not producing $0. Everything's producing a little bit of cash, right? This is what I've been doing for the past 2 or 3 years. Now, let's go into the pros and cons. Let's go back to scaling vertically, growing your business vertically for a second. At some point, the biggest pro in my head is that it scales better. Going from $0 a month to $10,000 a month is way harder than going from $70,000 a month to $80,000 a month. That's still a $10,000 increase, but the flywheel is spinning, so to speak, right? Things scale better with this vertical growth approach, I think. It makes sense in my head. And I can certainly say that growing Do You Even Blog for the first year was insanely more difficult than growing it in years 2 through 5. At some point, it scales better with this. Now, it's also possibly easier and possibly harder, which we'll get to in a second. The biggest con for growing your business like this, like absolute focus all in on one project or one business, or even like one channel like SEO or YouTube, for example. The problem with this, the big con in my head is The Dip. The Dip by Seth Godin is a book that talks about this question: should I quit or should I persist? It's a really difficult question to know. Things aren't working. In month 6 of Do You Even Blog, should I quit and do something different, or should I persist and try and grow this vertically? The dip, that question. Is this working or is it not? Should I be spending my time here or not? That is a very difficult question that you have to go through when you are focusing on one project. Not so much when you're intentionally growing horizontally. No one cares. If the dip happens, you just move on to the next thing. Maybe, right? That's the theory, at least. That's the big con for growing. Also, another big con is it's harder for a lot of people. Some people it's not. I have friends that seem to just relentlessly focus on one business, and it makes me sick. I'm jealous of those people because I can't do that at all. It's really hard for me to focus on Do You Even Blog. It's really hard. I don't actually want to do it. I get bored really easily, and I want to learn new things. I want to do new things. I want to try new things all the time, and I'm flooded with ideas and shiny object syndrome and yada yada, right? It's harder to grow your business vertically. Now let's talk about horizontally. And this is, I think, where the most myths are. When I say like, oh, I dropped Do You Even Blog to focus on some of these other projects, in a lot of people's heads, it screams, lack of focus. I'm pointing my finger right now. You, lack of focus. No, you got to focus until you're successful. Follow one course until you're successful. Okay. I don't actually think that's true for all the people all the time. So the biggest pro, actually there's like 2 or 3 pros for diversifying your business into multiple projects, into multiple businesses for that matter. Actually, that's the biggest one, diversity. In March of this year, my highest earning niche site, several $1,000s a month, got hacked. I got spammed with a bunch of WordPress plugins, content injections in Google search results just for like spam content, and my traffic nosedived. I'm talking, I lost 90%, maybe it's like 85% of my traffic gone overnight. And my earnings similarly decreased by that amount. Now, it stunk. Of course, it was frustrating, but I had other income sources. It wasn't the only egg in my basket, right? My income is pretty well diverse at this point. And I have income coming in from YouTube across multiple channels and different blogs, and now some apps. And even then, between projects, ads, affiliate marketing, digital products, like I'm all over the place. But if one income stream completely fails, I still have others to back it up in some respect. Diversity is always good. And I know I can hear some of you out there saying, yeah, you can diversify your income streams with one business as well, growing vertically. Yes, of course you can. But it's not quite as diverse as different businesses, different projects across different industries, that sort of thing. So that's the biggest pro. Another pro, quite frankly, is it's more fun and better suited for some people. I have to say some people because, of course, we're all different. But for me, I live for trying new things. I live for taking businesses from zero to $3,000 a month. That just happens to be my sweet spot. After that, I get bored and I get frustrated because I can't really figure out how to get it to like $20,000 a month. But like zero to five, zero to like $7,000 a month tends to be my sweet spot. And especially like 0 to 1,000, I can do that with a business today so fast, so easy. Just because I built up the audience for Do Even Blog and I know what I'm doing that much more at this point, I can do that time and time again. I can start blogs for a couple of weeks, pump out a bunch of content at this point for SEO and Facebook and Pinterest and stuff like that, and start earning. It's not going to be a bajillion-dollar blog, but I can do that. It's more fun for me, and maybe it's more fun for you. I don't know. So those are the pros. What about the cons? It doesn't scale, maybe. I actually underlined the word maybe in my notes right here. Obviously, when you divert your attention and energy into different projects, you only have so many plates that you can spin. You want to spin another plate? You have to put another plate down, an existing plate down, right? You lose attention and energy towards projects. It doesn't scale as well, as easy. But here's my big maybe. Here's my big underline maybe. I talked about the dip a second ago. If you're all in focusing on one project, there's opportunity cost there. What if the next project you start absolutely takes off? It's not likely, but it is a possibility. And so I do think that diverting your attention over multiple projects, by the way, not at the same time. I should have said this earlier. I don't suggest going and starting 10 different businesses all at the same time. We'll get to this more in a second, but I more suggest focusing on something and then making a very hard and fast decision on when to swap, and then when to swap again, and then when to swap again. Not at the same time. I should have prefaced that, but I'll talk more about that in just a second. The point is, any one project may not scale when you are doing this, but there's always a potential for one of your projects or businesses to grow much faster than the others. You hit it big, right? I started 50 plus online businesses between 2009 and 2017. That's a fact. Like over 50 blogs, podcasts, e-com sites. Like I did a bunch in those years, and they all pretty much failed spectacularly until they didn't. Until something kind of worked. That was Do Even Blog. It's the one I stuck with for like the 4 years after that. The point is, there might be a potential for one project to earn drastically more than the others, at which point scale doesn't really mean as much. Okay, one more con here. I think this requires a very specific methodology. Growing your business horizontally. It requires a very specific methodology. And let me just spoil for you my very last thing that I want to talk about here. My last takeaway is a question. Which should you choose? Which should you choose? And should you try and grow your business vertically, focusing all in on one project or one medium or one business? Or should you try and diversify and scale horizontally with multiple businesses across multiple niches and yada yada? Which should you choose? Here's my answer. It doesn't matter as long as you choose. I wrote down in my notes here, intentionality. Intentionally choosing which to do. And here's why. I mentioned the podcast I was on yesterday, and we were talking about this, and I'm a dabbler. And at the end of the podcast, the host asked me something like, how do you manage this? Right? It seems like you have a lot going on, and you've done a lot over the past several years. Like, how do you think about managing all this? And my answer surprised even myself. The answer is, over time, I've gotten to a point where I intentionally set up projects from the get-go, right from the beginning, to not last forever. Sometimes it's doing a project with a very clear end date. An example is I did a podcast with my good friend Raina last year, and we were going to do one season, like 10 episodes, and then we're done. Then we're not touching it again. Like, that's a very clear end point. And I have similar things. In some of my niche sites, I've started them, I produce content, and then I've stopped completely. Not just like even maintenance mode. I've just stopped and let them sit. And some of them are still earning, some more than others, and that's fine. Over time, I've gotten pretty good at setting my projects up intentionally right from the start to support me growing horizontally. In most cases, in my case, it's having a set end date where I can see the end in my head. I'm going to work on this for a week, or I'm going to work on this for 3 months, and then I'm done. And then I can choose to keep working on it, or I can move on to something else. It's an intentional choice. I think without that, we would just be going blind. Shiny object syndrome is a real thing, and that's bad. That's unintentionally moving from thing to thing to thing without really considering it beforehand. I think if you make a solid decision to grow your business horizontally, you need to think through what that looks like exactly. How am I going to do projects? How am I going to do new business ideas that'll make all this work? If that makes any sense. I hope it does. I know this is a little bit of a tricky subject, but hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Tea break. Green tea. Zen. Zen green tea. That's the name of it. I'm feeling zen right now. Actually, I'm not. Okay. I think that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed listening to this or watching from wherever you're at. Feel free to email Pete at Do You Even Blog. If you have any thoughts or questions, concerns, I answer every email that I can. I open every email. I answer as many as I can. Or hit me up on Twitter at Do You Even Blog. And I hope you have a lovely day wherever you're at. Adios, my friends.